Nobody saw it coming, not really. Sure, there were warnings on the news about some weird virus outbreak downtown, but folks in Chicago had seen it all before, just another media scare, right? Marcus Williams sure as hell thought so when he rolled out of bed that Tuesday morning, grabbed his coffee, and headed to his construction job like any other day. The guy was built like a tank, all muscle and grit from years of hauling steel beams across half-finished skyscrapers. He'd survived 3 tours in Afghanistan, a messy divorce, and the Bears losing season after season, so some flu bug wasn't gonna rattle him. But when he pulled up to the site on West Madison and saw his foreman, Big Tommy Rodriguez, literally eating the face off the new hire, Marcus knew this wasn't your average sick day situation. The kid couldn't have been more than 22, fresh out of trade school with dreams of making decent money, and now he was gurgling blood while Tommy gnawed through his cheek like it was Sunday dinner. Marcus didn't think, didn't hesitate, he grabbed a length of rebar and swung hard, connecting with Tommy's skull with a sickening crunch that echoed across the empty lot. Tommy dropped like a sack of concrete, but the damage was done. The kid was gone, eyes already glazing over with that milky white death stare Marcus had seen too many times overseas. He stumbled backward, heart hammering against his ribs, and that's when he heard it, screaming, everywhere, rising up from the streets below like some kind of hellish symphony. The city was tearing itself apart, and it had happened in what felt like seconds. Marcus ran to the edge of the building and looked down at Michigan Avenue, where chaos had completely taken over. Cars were smashed into storefronts, people were running in every direction, and those things, those goddamn things that used to be people, were chasing them down, dragging them to the ground, ripping and tearing with teeth and hands that didn't know mercy anymore. A bus had crashed into the Starbucks across the street, and through the shattered windows, Marcus could see passengers stumbling out, but they weren't looking for help, they were looking for prey. His phone buzzed in his pocket, and he yanked it out with shaking hands. 12 missed calls from his sister, Vanessa, who lived up in Lincoln Park with her husband and their 2 kids. His stomach dropped as he dialed her back, praying she'd pick up, praying she was somewhere safe with little Jake and Emma. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times, and then her voice came through, breathless and terrified. "Marcus, oh God, Marcus, they're everywhere. Derek's been bit, he's changing, I can see it, his eyes are..." The line went dead. Marcus screamed her name into the phone, but nothing came back except dead air. He wanted to break down right there, wanted to fall to his knees and give up, but that wasn't who he was. He'd lost brothers in combat, watched good men die in the sand, and he'd kept moving because that's what you did when the world went to hell, you adapted, you survived, you pushed forward. He grabbed his tool belt, stuffed it with anything that could be used as a weapon, and headed for the stairwell, taking the steps 3 at a time. The streets were a nightmare, worse than anything he'd seen in Kandahar. A woman in a business suit was crouched over a mailman, her designer heels kicked off to the side as she buried her face in his intestines. A group of teenagers who should have been in school were sprinting past, one of them trailing blood from a bite on his arm that was definitely gonna turn him into one of those things before nightfall. Marcus kept his head down and moved fast, heading north toward his sister's place, even though every instinct told him it was probably already too late. He passed a cop car with its doors wide open, the officer's body half hanging out, badge still gleaming in the morning sun. This was it, the end of everything normal, everything safe. The dead were walking, and the living were running out of places to hide. But Marcus Williams wasn't about to run, not yet. He had family to find, and if there was even a chance Vanessa and those kids were still breathing, he'd tear through every single one of those rotting bastards to get to them. The walk to Lincoln Park should have taken Marcus maybe 40 minutes on foot, but in this new version of Chicago where the dead outnumbered the living, every block was a war zone. He'd made it about 6 blocks north when he realized sticking to the main streets was a death sentence. Michigan Avenue looked like a scene from one of those end-of-the-world movies his nephew Jake loved watching, except there weren't any heroes swooping in to save the day, just regular people getting torn apart by neighbors and coworkers who'd turned into mindless eating machines. Marcus ducked into an alley behind what used to be a Thai restaurant, the smell of rotting garbage mixing with something way worse, fresh death. He pressed himself against the brick wall, trying to catch his breath and figure out his next move. That's when he heard the whimpering, soft and desperate, coming from behind a dumpster about 20 feet away. Every rational part of his brain screamed at him to keep moving, that stopping for anyone was how you ended up as zombie chow, but he'd never been good at leaving people behind. He crept forward, rebar gripped tight in both hands, and peered around the dumpster to find a girl, couldn't have been older than 16, huddled in a ball with her arms wrapped around her knees. Her name was Ashley Patterson, though Marcus didn't know that yet. She had her school backpack still strapped on, and her jeans were torn at the knee, blood seeping through the denim. "Hey," Marcus whispered, trying not to startle her. "You bit?" The girl's head snapped up, tears streaming down her face, eyes wild with terror. She shook her head violently. No, I fell running from them. It's just scraped up. Please don't leave me here, please. My mom and dad were at work downtown when it started, and I don't know where to go." Marcus cursed under his breath. He didn't have time for this, didn't have the supplies to be playing babysitter to some scared kid, but looking at her reminded him of Emma, his niece, probably just as terrified wherever she was. "All right, listen up," he said, extending his hand to pull her up. "You stick close to me, you don't make noise, and you do exactly what I say when I say it. I'm heading to Lincoln Park to find my family. You can tag along till we figure out somewhere safe." Ashley grabbed his hand like it was the only solid thing left in the universe and pulled herself up. She was taller than he expected, athletic build, probably played soccer or ran track. "I'm Ashley," she managed between shaky breaths. "Marcus. Now let's move before those things smell us." They made their way through the alley system, Marcus leading them in what he hoped was the right direction. The sounds of the city dying followed them everywhere, screaming, gunshots, car alarms, and underneath it all, that awful moaning growl that the infected made, like they were calling to each other. They'd made it maybe another 10 blocks when they ran into real trouble. The alley opened up onto a side street, and standing right in the middle of it were maybe a dozen of those things, all clustered around something Marcus couldn't quite see. Ashley gasped, and one of the zombies' heads jerked in their direction. Its face was half gone, jaw hanging by threads of muscle, but it could still see them, still wanted them. The whole group turned as one, and Marcus knew they had maybe 3 seconds before this got ugly. "Run," he shouted, grabbing Ashley's arm and yanking her back the way they came. But the alley behind them wasn't empty anymore either. 3 more infected had stumbled in, blocking their retreat. They were trapped, and Marcus could hear Ashley's breathing getting faster, panic setting in. He looked around frantically and spotted a fire escape ladder on the building to their left, the bottom rung hanging about 8 feet up. "Can you jump?" he asked Ashley, already knowing they didn't have a choice. She nodded, and Marcus laced his fingers together, making a step with his hands. "On 3. 1, 2, 3. Ashley put her foot in his hands, and Marcus boosted her up with everything he had. She caught the ladder, pulled herself up, and Marcus jumped, his fingers barely catching the bottom rung. The infected were on him, grabbing at his boots as he hauled himself up, one of them getting a grip on his ankle. He kicked hard, his boot connecting with rotted teeth, and the thing lost its hold. He scrambled up after Ashley, both of them climbing until they reached the 3rd-floor landing, chests heaving. Below them, the zombies gathered, reaching up uselessly, moaning that horrible sound. Marcus looked north toward where his sister's apartment waited, and for the first time since this nightmare started, he let himself wonder if maybe, just maybe, he was already too late. The fire escape groaned under their weight as Marcus and Ashley climbed higher, putting distance between themselves and the growing crowd of infected below. Marcus's arms burned from the climb, sweat dripping into his eyes despite the cool October air. They reached the roof of the 6-story apartment building, and Marcus hauled himself over the ledge, then pulled Ashley up behind him. For a moment, they just lay there on the tar paper roofing, gasping for air, staring up at the sky that looked way too normal for a day when the world had gone completely sideways. From up here, Chicago spread out before them like a postcard from hell. Smoke rose from at least a dozen different locations, thick black columns that stained the afternoon sky. In the distance, Marcus could hear helicopter rotors, probably news crews or military trying to get a handle on what was happening, but he knew better. This wasn't something you could contain, not when it spread this fast. He pulled out his phone and tried Vanessa again, but the call wouldn't even connect now. The networks were probably overloaded with everyone trying to reach their loved ones, or maybe the cell towers were already going down. Ashley sat up, pulling her knees to her chest, and Marcus noticed she was shaking. "You got any family we need to find?" he asked, trying to distract her from the panic he could see building in her eyes. She shook her head. "My older brother Justin moved to Seattle last year. Mom and Dad both work at the hospital, Northwestern Memorial. If they were there when this started." She didn't finish the sentence, didn't need to. Hospitals would have been ground zero for this thing, everyone bringing in their sick relatives before anyone knew what was really happening. Marcus had seen enough combat to know how fast something like this could spread in close quarters. "My sister's place is maybe 8 more blocks north," Marcus said, scanning the rooftops. "We can move building to building, stay off the streets. Safer up high." That's when they heard the voice, rough and suspicious, coming from behind an air conditioning unit on the far side of the roof. "Yeah, safer until someone puts a bullet in your head for trying to steal their supplies." Marcus spun around, raising the rebar, but stopped when he saw the shotgun barrel pointed directly at his chest. The guy holding it was maybe 60, gray beard, wearing a ratty Cubs cap and a flannel shirt that had seen better days. Behind him, a younger woman emerged, probably early 30s, holding a baseball bat like she knew how to use it. Her red hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and her face was hard, no tears, just cold calculation. "We're not here to steal anything," Marcus said slowly, keeping his hands where they could see them. "Just passing through, heading north to find my family." The old man spat tobacco juice onto the roof. "Name's Gerald Mitchell. This is my building, lived here 32 years. That there's Katie Brennan, from 4C. Everyone else in the building either ran or turned into one of those things." He lowered the shotgun slightly but didn't put it away. "You got bit?" "No," Marcus said firmly. "Neither of us. Look, we don't want trouble. We'll move to the next building and be out of your hair." Katie stepped forward, her eyes scanning them both carefully. "When did it start for you? Where were you?" Marcus explained about the construction site, about Tommy eating the new kid's face, about the phone call from Vanessa that cut off mid-sentence. Ashley told them about being at Lincoln Park High School, about how their substitute teacher started convulsing during third period and came up biting, about watching her best friend Melissa get dragged down in the hallway stampede. Gerald and Katie exchanged a look, some kind of silent communication that came from shared trauma. "It hit the building around 9:30 this morning," Katie said, her voice flat and mechanical, like she was reporting the weather. "Mrs. Chin from 2B came home early from her night shift at the hospital, seemed sick. By 10, she'd turned and attacked Mr. Peterson in the elevator. After that, it spread through the building like wildfire. Gerald and I made it up here, barricaded the roof access. We've been watching the city tear itself apart ever since." She pointed toward the north. "Your sister in Lincoln Park? I hate to tell you this, but that whole neighborhood's been overrun. We watched from up here. The infected are packed in there thick, drawn to all the people who were trying to shelter in their homes." Marcus felt his stomach drop, but he pushed the fear down deep where it couldn't paralyze him. "I don't care if there's 1,000 of those things between me and her. I'm not giving up without knowing for sure." Gerald studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly, a hint of respect creeping into his weathered face. "You military?" "Was. Army." Did 3 tours in Afghanistan. Figures. You got that look about you. Gerald finally lowered the shotgun completely. All right, soldier boy. You want to get to Lincoln Park, I can show you the best route across the rooftops. But after that, you're on your own. Gerald Mitchell led them across the roof to the northern edge, his boots crunching on loose gravel and broken glass. The gap between his building and the next one was maybe 6 feet, nothing impossible, but the 5-story drop to the alley below made it a whole different ballgame. Marcus peered over the edge and saw 4 infected stumbling around down there, bumping into trash cans and each other like drunk college kids, except way more interested in eating people than finding the next party. You gotta get a running start, Gerald explained, pointing to a chalk line he'd drawn about 15 feet back from the edge. I've made the jump twice already, checking the other buildings for supplies. Katie's too smart to risk it, stays here and keeps watch. Katie rolled her eyes but didn't argue. She'd positioned herself near the roof access door, bat ready in case any of the infected figured out how to climb stairs. Ashley looked at the gap, then at Marcus, her face going pale. I don't know if I can do this, she whispered, and Marcus could see her legs were already shaking. You can, Marcus said firmly, putting a hand on her shoulder. I've seen guys jump farther than this carrying 80 pounds of gear in full combat load. You're young, you're athletic, and you're light. Just don't think about it too much, don't look down, and don't slow down before you reach the edge. Commit to the jump. Gerald spat again. Kid goes first. She's lightest. Then you, big man. I'll stay here with Katie, keep our little fortress secure. When you get over there, check the roof access. Building's called the Westmore Apartments. Probably got infected inside, but the roof should be clear. Marcus walked Ashley back to the chalk line, talking to her the whole time, keeping her focused. You played sports, right? What did you play? Soccer, Ashley managed, her voice barely above a whisper. Varsity. I'm a forward. Perfect. So you've done sprints, right? This is just a sprint. Short burst of speed, like you're racing for the goal. Eyes on the other side, not on the gap. You got this. Ashley took 3 deep breaths, the kind athletes do before a big play, and Marcus saw something shift in her face. The fear was still there, but underneath it, determination was taking root. She backed up to the chalk line, bounced on her toes a couple times, and then she was moving, feet pounding against the roof, backpack bouncing, and she launched herself across the gap. For a second she was airborne, arms windmilling, and Marcus's heart stopped. Then her feet hit the opposite roof and she stumbled forward, catching herself with her hands, but she was across, she was safe. She turned back with a grin that was equal parts relief and pride. Your turn, soldier boy, Gerald said, and Marcus didn't waste time. He backed up to the line, took 1 breath, and ran. The jump was easy for him, his long legs eating up the distance, and he landed solid with room to spare. He turned back to see Gerald giving him a thumbs up. Head east 2 buildings, then north again. Gerald shouted across. Stay high, stay smart. And if you find any canned food, remember your old pal Gerald. Marcus waved and led Ashley toward the next building. This gap was narrower, only about 4 feet, and they both made it across without drama. But the 3rd building presented a new problem. The roof access door was hanging open, and Marcus could hear sounds coming from the stairwell below, that awful moaning, and shuffling footsteps, lots of them. We need to move fast, Marcus whispered, pulling Ashley toward the far side of the roof. But before they could make the next jump, someone emerged from the stairwell, and Marcus almost swung the rebar before he realized it was a living person, not one of the infected. The guy was maybe 25, wearing designer jeans and a polo shirt that probably cost more than Marcus made in a week. He had perfectly styled blonde hair and the kind of pretty boy face that usually made Marcus want to punch him on principle, but right now Marcus was just glad to see another survivor. Behind him came 2 more people, a heavy-set man in his 40s wearing a security guard uniform, and a thin Asian woman in hospital scrubs with blood splattered across the front. Close the door, close the damn door, the security guard was yelling, and Marcus could see why. Behind them on the stairs, infected were climbing, at least a dozen of them, moving slow but steady. The blond guy, who introduced himself as Brandon Hicks between gasps for air, slammed the door shut and looked around frantically. "We need something to block it. They're gonna push through." Marcus spotted an old water heater that had been disconnected and left on the roof, probably during some renovation that never got finished. He and the security guard, whose name tag read Dennis Cole, dragged it over and wedged it against the door just as the infected started pounding from the other side. The door shook but held. "That won't last forever," the woman in scrubs said. Her name was Dr. Lisa Park, and she looked like she'd been through absolute hell. Her hands were steady though, Marcus noticed, not shaking like Ashley's, not panicked like Brandon's. This was someone who'd already seen the worst and come out the other side. "Then we keep moving," Marcus said. "I'm heading to Lincoln Park, got family there. You all are welcome to come along or go your own way, but we can't stay here." Dr. Lisa Park leaned against the roof's edge, staring at the blood on her scrubs like she was seeing it for the first time. "Lincoln Park's a dead zone," she said quietly, her voice carrying the weight of someone who'd watched too many people die in the last few hours. "I came from Northwestern Memorial. The hospital got overrun around 11 this morning. We had patients turning on the operating tables, doctors getting bit while trying to help, nurses barricading themselves in supply closets. I saw the infected pouring into that neighborhood like a damn flood. If your family's there." She trailed off, but Marcus knew what she wasn't saying. He'd known it since Katie mentioned it back on Gerald's roof, but knowing something and accepting it were two different things entirely. "I have to see for myself," Marcus said, his jaw set. "Vanessa's smart. She might have gotten the kids out, might have found somewhere to hide. I'm not writing them off based on maybes." Brandon Hicks laughed, but there wasn't any humor in it, just the edge of hysteria that came from a privileged life suddenly going sideways. "Dude, that's suicide. I've got a yacht docked at Monroe Harbor, fully stocked. We could get there in maybe 20 minutes if we move smart. Get out on the water where those things can't follow. That's the play." Dennis Cole shook his head, his security guard instincts clearly at war with common sense. "The harbor's gonna be packed with people who had the same idea. Probably already chaos down there. Besides, you know how to actually operate a yacht, kid, or did Daddy just buy it for you to impress girls?" Brandon's face flushed red. "I can figure it out. It's not rocket science." "Yeah, and that attitude's gonna get you killed," Dennis shot back. He turned to Marcus. "I got no family left in the city. Wife died 3 years ago, kids are grown and living in Phoenix. I'm with you if you're heading to check on your sister. Someone's gotta watch your back." Ashley had been quiet, standing apart from the group, but now she spoke up. "I'm staying with Marcus too. He saved my life. I'm not running off to some yacht while people need help." Marcus felt something tighten in his chest. These people were looking to him like he had answers, like he was some kind of leader, but the truth was he was just as lost as they were, just better at hiding it. The pounding on the roof access door was getting louder, more insistent. Whatever was wedging it shut wouldn't hold much longer. "We need to make a choice now," Dr. Park said, pulling a small revolver from her pocket that made everyone take a step back. "I took this off a guy who tried to steal an ambulance. Got 4 bullets left. Not much, but it's something." She looked at Marcus. "You seem like you actually know what you're doing. I'll follow your lead, but we move now or we're gonna have company real soon." Marcus did a quick mental calculation. Brandon was dead weight, probably get someone killed with his panic and selfishness, but leaving him behind felt wrong, even if the guy was a tool. Dennis looked solid, former military maybe, or at least someone who'd handled pressure before. Dr. Park was obviously capable, medical knowledge alone made her invaluable. And Ashley, scared as she was, had guts. "We stick together," Marcus decided. "Make for Lincoln Park, check on my family. After that, anyone who wants to try for the yacht can go. But we don't split up, not yet. Alone is how you die in situations like this." Brandon looked like he wanted to argue, but the sound of splintering wood from the access door cut him off. The infected were breaking through. "Next building, now!" Marcus ordered, and they all ran for the eastern edge. The gap was wider here, maybe 7 feet, and Marcus went first to show it could be done. He landed hard, rolled, came up ready. Ashley jumped next, making it across with inches to spare. Dennis followed, his extra weight making the landing rough, but he was across. Dr. Park came next, smooth and controlled, like she'd been jumping across buildings her whole life. That left Brandon, who stood on the other side, frozen, staring at the gap like it was the Grand Canyon. "I can't do it," he said, backing away from the edge. "It's too far, I'll fall." Behind him, the access door finally gave way, the water heater toppling over as infected poured onto the roof. There were more than Marcus had thought, maybe 20 of them, all moaning and reaching, their dead eyes locking onto Brandon. "Jump now or you're dead," Marcus shouted, but Brandon was paralyzed with fear, shaking his head, stumbling backward right into the arms of the first infected to reach him. The thing used to be a woman, maybe a soccer mom or a teacher, but now it was just hunger and instinct. It grabbed Brandon's shoulder, pulled him close, and bit down on his neck. Brandon's scream cut through the air, high and terrible, and Marcus had to grab Ashley and turn her away before she saw the rest of the infected pile on, dragging Brandon down under a wave of rotting bodies. "We have to go," Dr. Park said urgently, already moving toward the next building. "Now, before they figure out how to jump or find another way across." They ran, leaving Brandon's screams behind them, and Marcus tried not to think about how easily that could have been any of them, how thin the line was between living and becoming just another meal for the dead. 3 buildings later, they finally stopped to catch their breath on a roof that overlooked the southern edge of Lincoln Park. What Marcus saw made his blood run cold. The streets below were packed with infected, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, all wandering aimlessly between the brownstones and luxury apartments where people had thought they'd be safe. The 4 of them stood at the roof's edge, staring down at what used to be one of Chicago's nicest neighborhoods, now transformed into a feeding ground for the dead. Marcus pulled out a pair of binoculars he'd grabbed from Gerald's roof and scanned the streets, looking for any sign of Vanessa's building. Her place was on North Burling Street, a renovated brownstone she and Derek had bought 3 years ago, back when things like mortgages and property values actually mattered. He found the building, and his heart sank. The front door was hanging open, and he could see infected stumbling in and out like they owned the place. Blood streaked the steps, and what looked like bodies lay scattered on the sidewalk, though from this distance he couldn't tell if they were truly dead or just waiting to turn. "That's it," Marcus said, pointing. "The brownstone with the green door, or what's left of it. 4 blocks northeast." Dennis whistled low. "That's a lot of those things between here and there. We go down to street level, we're gonna draw every single one of them. Even with the doc's gun, we'd be overwhelmed in seconds." Dr. Park was studying the area with a clinical eye, like she was diagnosing a patient instead of planning a route through hell. "The buildings here are close together. We might be able to get within a block using the rooftops, then find a fire escape that drops us close. In and out, fast and quiet. Grab whoever's there and extract." Ashley hadn't said anything since watching Brandon get torn apart. She sat against an air vent, her arms wrapped around her knees, staring at nothing. Marcus recognized that look, combat shock, the 1,000-yard stare. He'd seen it on soldiers after their first real firefight. He walked over and crouched beside her. "Hey. You still with me?" She blinked, focused on his face. He was right there. "We could have pulled him across, could have done something." "No, we couldn't," Marcus said gently but firmly. He froze. In situations like this, hesitation kills. "You didn't hesitate when I told you to jump. That's why you're alive and he's not. It's not fair, it's not right, but it's the truth." Tears welled up in Ashley's eyes. "Is this really happening? Like, this morning I was worried about a math test and whether Jason Turner was gonna ask me to homecoming, and now I'm watching people get eaten and jumping across buildings and I don't know how to do this." Marcus put a hand on her shoulder. You're already doing it. You're scared, you should be scared, but you're still here, still moving. That takes more courage than you know. I need you to hold on to that for a little while longer, okay? Just until we find my sister and those kids. Can you do that? Ashley wiped her eyes and nodded. Yeah, I can do that. They moved across 3 more buildings, the gaps getting trickier as the architecture changed. One jump required them to drop down about 4 feet onto a lower roof, and Dennis landed wrong, twisting his ankle. He cursed but waved off Dr. Park's concern. Just a twinge. I can walk it off. But Marcus could see him favoring the leg as they continued. They were 1 building away from Vanessa's brownstone when they ran into the survivor camp. It was set up on a flat roof, complete with camping tents, portable grills, and supplies that looked looted from a sporting goods store. 6 people were up there, and they all turned when Marcus's group climbed over the ledge. The leader was a woman in her mid-30s, with short dark hair and the kind of hard eyes that said she'd already made the tough calls and lived with them. She wore tactical pants and a black t-shirt, and had a hunting rifle slung over her shoulder. That's far enough, she said, not quite pointing the rifle at them but making it clear she could if needed. This is our spot. Keep moving. Marcus raised his hands in a peaceful gesture. We're just passing through. Got family in the building next door. We're not here to take your supplies or cause trouble. One of the other survivors, a younger guy with a neck tattoo and a baseball bat, stepped forward. Lady said keep moving. We got enough mouths to feed without taking in every stray that wanders up here. But an older man in the group, maybe 50, with glasses and a cardigan that looked ridiculous in the apocalypse, spoke up. Come on, Rachel, they're not infected. Let them pass through at least. When did we start turning away decent people? The woman, Rachel, gave him a hard look. When decent people started being a liability, Henry. We've got kids up here. 2 families. I'm not risking them for strangers. Marcus could see there was more going on here than just survivors being territorial. Behind Rachel, he spotted 2 small kids peeking out from one of the tents, maybe 6 and 8 years old, their faces smudged with dirt and fear. An elderly couple sat on folding chairs near a makeshift rain collection system, and a middle-aged man with a bandaged arm stood watch on the far side of the roof. These weren't just random people who'd thrown together a camp, this was what remained of a community trying to hold on to something decent while the world burned around them. Listen, Marcus said, keeping his voice calm and steady, I get it. You've got people to protect, and trust is a luxury nobody can afford right now. But I've got a sister and 2 kids in that building right there, and I haven't heard from them since this morning. I'm not asking for your help, not asking for supplies. Just let us cross your roof to get to them, and we'll be gone. Rachel studied him for a long moment, her finger resting near the trigger guard of her rifle. Then she looked at Ashley, who despite everything was still wearing her school backpack with a soccer ball keychain hanging off the zipper. Something in Rachel's expression softened, just a fraction. You former military? She asked Marcus. 3 tours, Army infantry. Afghanistan. She nodded slowly. Thought so. You move like you've seen combat. She lowered the rifle slightly. My husband was Marines. Died in Fallujah in 2006. I know the look. She jerked her head toward the eastern edge of the roof. You can cross. But make it quick, and if any of you are bit, you say something now or I swear to God I'll put a bullet in your head myself. None of us are infected, Dr. Park said, stepping forward. I'm a doctor. I've checked everyone. We're clean. Rachel's eyes narrowed. A doctor? Northwestern Memorial? Yes. You know it? My son broke his arm there last year. Place was good. Rachel seemed to make a decision. Henry, get them some water bottles for the road. And grab that first aid kit from Tent 3. The older man in the cardigan hurried off, and the guy with the neck tattoo, his name was Troy, Marcus learned, reluctantly moved aside to let them pass. While Henry gathered supplies, Rachel walked over to the edge overlooking Vanessa's building. I hate to tell you this, but we've been watching that brownstone all afternoon. Saw a lot of infected go in, haven't seen anyone come out alive. If your family was there when it got bad. She didn't finish, but Marcus heard what she wasn't saying. He'd heard it from Katie, from Dr. Park, from his own gut instinct that had been screaming at him since the phone call cut off. But hope was a stubborn thing, even when it was probably foolish. I still have to look, Marcus said quietly. Rachel nodded. I know. I'd do the same. She paused, then reached into her pocket and pulled out a spare magazine for what looked like a 9mm. You got a sidearm? Marcus shook his head. Just this rebar and my tools. She handed him a Glock from a holster at her back, along with the magazine. That's 18 rounds. Make them count. And if you find survivors down there, bring them back this way. We've got room for a few more, especially kids. Marcus took the gun, checked the chamber out of habit, and met her eyes. Thank you. Seriously. Don't thank me yet. You might not come back. Henry returned with water bottles and a basic first aid kit, which Dr. Park accepted gratefully. Dennis had sat down to rest his ankle, and Marcus could see it was swelling up pretty bad. You gonna be able to move? Marcus asked him. Dennis gritted his teeth and stood, testing his weight. I've worked 12-hour shifts on worse. I'm good. They made their way to the edge of Rachel's roof. The next building was Vanessa's, and there was maybe a 3-foot gap. Easy jump, but the roof access door over there was closed, which could mean it was barricaded from inside or just shut. Either way, they'd have to go through the building to reach the apartments. Marcus went first, landing quietly on the tar paper roof. The others followed, and they gathered near the access door. Marcus pressed his ear against the metal and heard nothing, no moaning, no shuffling, just silence, which was somehow worse. He tried the handle. Locked. Stand back, Dennis said, and before Marcus could stop him, the big security guard kicked the door near the lock. The frame splintered and the door swung inward, revealing a dark stairwell. The smell hit them immediately, death, decay, and something chemical, like cleaning products mixed with rot. Marcus pulled out his phone and turned on the flashlight, the Glock raised in his other hand. Dr. Park stayed close behind him, her revolver out. Ashley gripped a screwdriver she'd taken from Marcus's tool belt, and Dennis held a tire iron he'd found on Rachel's roof. They descended slowly, step by careful step. The 6th floor was empty, doors all closed, no signs of life or death. 5th floor, same thing. But when they reached the 4th floor, Vanessa's floor, Marcus saw the blood. It was everywhere, splattered on the walls, pooled on the carpet, drag marks leading to apartment 4C. Vanessa's apartment. The door was ajar. Marcus's hand was shaking now as he pushed it open wider, the flashlight beam cutting through the darkness inside. Vanessa, he called out softly. It's Marcus. Are you here? Silence answered him, heavy and absolute. He stepped inside, sweeping the light across the living room. Furniture was overturned, family photos lay shattered on the floor, and there was blood on the couch, on the walls, trailing toward the hallway. Marcus, Dr. Park said quietly, urgently. We should go. This place is cleared out. But Marcus couldn't leave, not yet. He moved down the hallway, checking rooms.